Welcome to Living Legacies 2020, Faces of Our Neighborhood. COVID-19 and the closing of our schools has changed this year's presentation. Traditionally, our honors public speaking students visit the South Brunswick Senior Center to deliver their speeches in person. This year, our students, many of whom are missing out on traditions and opportunities of their own, wanted to maintain this tradition by sharing the speeches they've prepared with our whole community. While we weren't able to produce the work we hoped for, we hope this video honors all those who were kind enough to agree to be interviewed. If you were interviewed by our students, but you don't find yourself included here, we hope you will understand how difficult it was to complete this project remotely. Thank you and enjoy the faces of our neighborhood.
Senior centers serve as a gateway in connecting older adults to community services that can help them stay independent and healthy. The Senior Center at South Brunswick has numerous activities and programs for seniors to partake in. But what is really made these programs special is Geeta Balasubramanian. Geeta is very involved at South Brunswick Senior Center by interacting with all of their seniors and making the center a home for them. She makes them feel wanted in the community and encourages all the other elders to participate in programs provided at the Senior Center. The seniors also feel comfortable in going to Geeta with any issues they may have because she has created an environment of openness. Starting from 7th grade, Geeta had to be in a boarding school where she learned independency, but leadership, as she describes, quote, has been within me inborn since birth. Quote, she would take leadership roles in her school, whether they were related to culture or class. In her high school unions, she worked for public relations and even as a cultural secretary. She continued working for others even during her college years and said that she was very interested in cultural events and programs than academics.
After moving to America and settling in South Brunswick in the year of 2010, Geeta decided to become a member at the South Brunswick Senior Center. But she didn't just stop there. She decided to use her leadership skills for the betterment of others. Geeta first started by volunteering with the Crochet Club, where she was able to make many things and donate them to hospitals and veterans. Slowly, she started playing a bigger role. Geeta was intrigued by an NGO called Friends. Friends goes hand in hand with the South Brunswick Senior Center by providing breakfast at the Senior Center every morning, organizing talent shows, and funding day trips for the seniors. Now Geeta is vice president of Friends, and she makes it her responsibility to get everyone involved as much as possible. Another way Geeta plays a major role here at the Senior Center is by being an excellent communicator. Throughout her life, Geeta has traveled all over India and managed to be fluent in many numerous languages, which now allows her to communicate with any South Asian senior who is not fluent in English. Geeta is also part of the Senior Advisory Council. The council consists of 13 to 14 members who meet with the mayor once a month to discuss any problems the seniors of the South Brunswick community have and to voice their opinions on current issues that may be taking place anywhere in South Brunswick. The seniors here at the center are always welcome to approach Geeta to share any problems they may be facing so she can voice their opinions as she is now chair of the nomination committee.
Geeta is a great inspiration to the seniors at the center as well as a living legacy in the South Brunswick community. She has been a leader at the Senior Center by being involved in Friends and participating in the Bridge program, which deals with helping others with their mental health. She has been a friend and a role model to all the seniors by communicating with them, making them feel at home, and being open with them. Geeta enjoys her job and is very content with her life because she is able to put a smile on other people's faces and help the seniors feel great about living and having fun. When Anushka, Aisha, and I walked into the Senior Center, we noticed an atmosphere of joy and gratefulness. The seniors were all surrounded by each other, playing games and talking. Geeta lights up the room with her smile and bubbly personality.
Throughout our community, there are many important figures that help shape activities and services we partake in, from trash disposal to dentistry. We depend on these people to make our lives more simplistic and helpful. Hi, my name is Komal and this is Rishi and Akash, and we are fortunate enough to get the opportunity to interview South Brunswick's very own Mr. Carbone. For those of you who may not know who Mr. Carbone is, he is an active member of the library's administration and the director. Being a former alumni of South Brunswick High School, Mr. Carbone was always passionate and giving back to the community he was a part of growing up. And we can say confidently, through observation, he fulfills this role on a daily basis. Earning an undergraduate degree in business, Mr. Carbone took it upon himself to utilize his management researching and budgeting skills to aid in the fields of management in the library. When asked about his inclination to serve South Brunswick, he claimed that the dedicated people and growth he saw as a student has pushed him to want better in his community. South Brunswick has always been a special place for Mr. Carbone, and through the time he spent here, he has seen it change significantly. He is an alumnus of South Brunswick High School, so it is an important part of his adolescence, and he has spent much time in this town, and he has a connection to the community. Even though he graduated, he is currently coaching teams in our high school, such as the color guard and the winter guard, and he continues to contribute to the school in any way he can. Mr. Carbone can also say that he has seen the township grow in many different aspects during his time here. He has witnessed the evolution of the school's district, the buildup of various helpful organizations, as well as the increase in dedicated people for our community. He has committed himself to better the community that we all share, and his achievements are obvious. He's facilitated effective communication between residents of South Brunswick and the South Brunswick Public Library and has helped secure several grants for the library. Currently, he is working on a grant to enable the expansion of the parking lot to addition of study rooms in an auditorium that could hold at least 100 people. And in the auditorium, there will be hallways full of artwork from our local community.
Mr. Carbone can be considered nothing short of a public servant, as he has dedicated himself to advancing the community that he has come to love. His role as the director of the South Brunswick Public Library has provided him with the unique perspectives of South Brunswick and how it has changed since he started. He consistently provides South Brunswick residents with opportunities to enhance their knowledge through the programs that the library offers. He strives to increase the constant stream of information that the library provides to the people of the township and does whatever he can to help the students who study in the South Brunswick School District. We should all thank him for the hard work he has put into helping every single one of us and for taking the time to be interviewed by us.
Scholar R. David Lankeys once said that bad libraries build collections, good libraries build service, and great libraries build communities. Truly, a library is an essential part of any community. They provide an accepting environment for individuals to read, learn, and socialize. Good morning. My name is Samarth, and it is our honor to introduce to you the Assistant Director of the South Brunswick Public Library, Judy Pietrobono. In her childhood, Mrs. Pietrobono was a shy kid with a passion for literature. In order to break out of her shell, she chose a degree that forced her to become social and conversational. She decided to pursue a subject that would combine her love for writing with her desire to become more active and social. Mrs. Pietrobono graduated with a degree in journalism for her undergrad and worked with various newspaper and publishing companies. However, after large newspaper companies started taking over the industry, she went back to grad school, where she studied library science and worked in Rutgers, where she got to help undergraduates as a librarian there. From there, she moved on to working at the South Brunswick Public Library.
Have you ever noticed that there is a board above the water fountains in the South Brunswick Public Library? On this board are events for teens, but who schedules these events? That person is Selena. She is a teen librarian at the South Brunswick Public Library who works with teen volunteers to create events for teens. She is the main driving force behind the TVA, which is the Teen Voices in Alliance, and the EVA, which is the Executive Voices in Alliance, which help her. But who is Selena Davidson? What made her decide to choose to be a teen librarian? That is for us to know and for you to find out from our speech.
Well, it's been quite the experience. I didn't actually start out thinking I'd be here in this field. I originally majored in music, but it didn't feel right. I ended up dropping out, and I thought about places that made a difference to me. I thought of the librarian from my school that always made me feel comfortable, and when she retired, the whole library changed. It was then that I knew I could become the person I knew I needed. The library was my safe zone. I started with being a children's librarian, then moved to teen level because it was more challenging but also more rewarding. I just love that things always keep changing since I never get bored. The best part about working at the South Brunswick Public Library is when I can make the connection with a person and really see them blooming and growing into an amazing person. I get to see them grow and, of course, see people having fun. I couldn't possibly imagine leaving this place. Even in 10 years, I expect to still be right here. I've seen my teen section be built up from a tiny corner to a big room. I may have scrambled at the beginning, but now I thrive. It's my niche. Through my time here, I really learned to smile and be kind, but also to be non-committal and admit mistakes. Not everything always goes my way, and I need to keep in mind that I'm the face of this place. If there's anything I'd say to future students thinking about a career in this area, I'd encourage them to be sure they really have a passion for helping people and digging and finding information. It's not like they make $1 million over here. It all boils down to just remembering to always make time for people and be considerate, especially in this profession because of such confrontational teens or dealing with angry or upset parents or customers.
Mrs. Davidson is one of the most inspiring people you will meet in South Brunswick. She has done tremendous work to improve the facilities kids get in South Brunswick Public Library. She made a lot of changes like starting clubs like TVA and the EVA to name a few. She also helped a lot of fundraisers like Urban Foods to organize their campaigns by inviting students from high school to volunteer, which in turn helps students in their college application. We sincerely thank Mrs. Davidson for all she did to the South Brunswick community, and she will always be remembered as our friendly neighborhood librarian.
Where the South Brunswick community shines the most is the interconnected web of support that is its public library. It is a place that is dedicated to aiding people of all ages, from early childhood to senior citizenship. As I've frequented it my entire life, I knew it was where I wanted to find my living legacy. I reached out to Matt Kirshner, the head of child services at the library. He's an individual that values this core ideology of what a place dedicated to serving the people is, helping others and helping themselves. A life working at the library varies wildly, which is understandable when realizing just how many different types of people enter and exit its front doors every day. Some responsibilities in his workplace include maintaining the children's collection, planning the events and themes for the year, and overseeing the child services budget. He's seen the library evolve from a place that simply holds books to a community center that is always bustling with activity. From shelving books at 15 to now overseeing the innovative child services staff, Matt Kirshner knows the worth behind working for others. He realized early on that he did not want to move on from South Brunswick and made sure that he could maintain his ties to the public library by graduating from Rutgers with a master's in information science, an accomplishment that allowed him to continue doing what he loved so much. Over the years, he's faced the challenges we all do when trying to achieve our goals, but he's not regret any steps he's taken on his path. Though we all may wish our lives could have gone more smoothly than they originally did, it's the struggle to discover ourselves that holds the most importance in finding our place. He has seen the library become more than just its preconceived stereotype. Now it is a place that challenges children with alternative methods of education and encourages them to meet new friends, an environment that assists them both in play and learning. It is a place that is there to aid above all else.
New store, new job, new community. Although only working in South Brunswick for just about 4 months, Alexis Angelos has emerged as a local leader as a store manager of the Home Depot in South Brunswick. In just her few months working here, she has faced a significant challenge when many of the other stores in the same shopping complex were closing down. She has stepped up and reached out to the local community to make people realize that the Home Depot wasn't among the stores that were closing down. Furthermore, during Ms. Angelos' time here in South Brunswick, she has realized how truly tight-knit and diverse the community is. Although she has never seen a store manager as a so-called dream job, Alexis Angelos really likes working at Home Depot, where there's a great culture because of the company and the location in South Brunswick.
Growing up, she was not exactly sure as to what she was going to be in the future, but always knew to follow her sister. Alexis always viewed her older sister as her role model due to her passion and hard work towards one goal. As a store manager, Alexis had to deal with dozens of employees, each of whom had different personalities, strengths, weaknesses, and are at different stages in life. She has learned how to get to know each one of them individually and coordinate them as a unit in order to operate the store. To her work as a local leader, Alexis's most important strength is her ability to develop the other staff, not merely managing them but also helping them advance in their careers. However, on the job, Alexis also realizes how important it is for her to not only do everything herself and use the help of other employees and staff. Furthermore, as the leader of Home Depot, Alexis realizes how vital it is for her to always be happy on the job, even if she is having a bad day. She knows that there are so many people depending on her and counting on her ability to lead the group, which is why she had always had a positive attitude on the job.
Coffee, cheesecake, strawberry, the different scents weave together, unable to be distinguished. Cold Stone Creamery is a staple in the South Brunswick community. Whether it be with friends or family, it's always a memorable experience. I'm Imran, and along with Haley and Safwan, we decided to look at the story behind the store. Joyce Hatter is the owner of this particular franchise, and talking to her has given us insight to the daily life of a business owner. From the ups and downs of managing staff and dealing with customers to keeping up with the dynamic economic environment. Mrs. Hatter previously worked at an insurance company, awarding bonuses based on commission. Later, she dabbled in event planning for the same company. Working in these jobs early on helped her develop a strong-hearted personality and discipline. These past experiences have contributed to her success as an entrepreneur. After having her 2 kids, Joyce joined her husband in running the Cold Stone Creamery and eventually took it over. Since taking ownership, she has learned more about what it takes to be a leader within a community.
Typically, Mrs. Hatter comes into the store in the mornings to set up and plan for the day ahead. This involves decorating cakes, taking orders, and creating a task list for the staff members. Managing staff can be an arduous task, and some of the most challenging days are when staff members call out sick and she has to find replacements. Other difficult aspects of her job include handling customers and accommodating their needs. She prides herself on her time management skills and constantly checks in with her staff to stay on top of any obstacles. Having been in the industry for over 10 years now, Mrs. Hatter has seen the ever-changing landscape that business owners face. 2 of the biggest changes she has faced are labor and regulations. She described how minimum wage has almost tripled since she initially began. Due to the rising costs of operation, Mrs. Hatter has dedicated painstaking hours to her work in order to ensure that her business is profitable and successful. The significant changes to the industry has taught her to adapt her business model to fit the new environment.
Furthermore, she emphasizes the importance of staying on top of regulations set by South Brunswick and Middlesex County. Being in the food industry, there are specific health guidelines that the store must adhere to. In addition to these changes, the improvements in technology have contributed significantly to her business. New machinery and software has made it easier to complete tasks that may have taken longer in the past. Now, when I walk into Cold Stone, I don't just appreciate the smells of the ice cream, but the woman behind the counter. Whether it be in terms of the leadership position she holds or the way she adapts to new environments, Mrs. Hatter has taught us a great deal about the ins and outs of running a business. But it's not just a business. Cold Stone is an integral aspect of the South Brunswick community.
Complicated things suck. Complicated documents, complicated procedures, complicated systems. They never bring themselves forward in the easiest and most convenient way. One of the most complicated things to do right now would probably be buying a home. all that, getting pre-approved for a loan, then figuring out what you want, and then getting all those documents like a W-2 form, pay stub, recent tax returns, getting all that together just to get a mortgage ready. All of that is so complicated. There are so many ins and outs that you would really have to be a professional to get the best stuff. Hi, I'm Shraddha, and someone who I would definitely recommend is Miss Claudia Ryan, who is a fabulous addition to our ever-growing family at South Brunswick. She's one of a kind in her job, and she's worked very hard to get to her very successful spot today. She originally lived in Livingston in Essex County, and she went to the University of Miami as a marketing major. She held a job as a securities broker for 5 years and eventually moved on from that when she had her first child. After that, she worked in schools for 6 years as a substitute teacher and heard about getting her real estate license and has been doing it ever since. She's a wife and a mother. She married her husband, Bob Ryan, in 1986, and she has 3 kids, Matt, Jimmy, and Haley. Now on to her credentials. She's considered a top agent and is part of the #1 team in Mercer County, which is a pretty big deal. Her job is incredibly fulfilling for her with a great first client. She was able to turn that first client's life around by helping her get the right home and guiding her to the next chapter of her life, which was when she actually knew that this was meant for her. It's not as if her professional career was all rainbows and sunshines, though, because one of her biggest lessons that she felt she learned was that it's okay to make mistakes and getting back up is the best way to succeed. I remember being a wee little girl whose parents were looking for a new home, and it was an awfully long process that my 9-year-old self was incredibly annoyed by. Eventually, we moved to the wonderful area of South Brunswick. So yes, complicated things are never fun, but all of that complicated can be alleviated with the right person by your side, and when it comes to home buying, Miss Ryan could not be better. She has lots of experience on her side and is one of the most trusted with homes. So trust her, because you're putting your money into capable hands.
Dr. Linga grew up and studied in India. In India, the most important grades in a student's career are 10th grade and 12th grade. In 10th grade, it's required that students narrow their focuses and decide which field they want to go into, such as medicine or engineering. The grades a student receives in 10th grade determine their eligibility to pursue the field that they choose. As a result of this system, Dr. Linga decided her career path in 10th grade. She knew she wanted to pursue something that would serve the community and figured that being a doctor was the right fit for her. Ever since that realization, she pursued her passion of being a doctor. Dr. Linga was trained in India, where the medical system differs greatly from the U.S. A big initial hardship she faced was getting retrained for the U.S.'s medical system. She took many exams to be allowed to practice medicine in the U.S., and it required a tremendous amount of hard work on her behalf. Additionally, she noted that the cultural differences amongst India and the U.S. served as a barrier in the beginning of her career. Acclimating to a different language and accent took time. However, once she got past the difficulties she faced, she was able to thrive as a doctor in the U.S.
Her job involves dealing with people's emotions and reactions, which Dr. Linga took a while to get used to. She learned to not take things personally and should use her sensitivity wisely. She used her good listening skills and did not seem judgmental and impulsive when answering questions by patients and their families. To deliver bad news, Dr. Linga would try her best to be neutral. After 20 years of being in her line of work, she understood what it would be fairly difficult to thrive if she did not keep herself up to date with the work that she needed to learn. Motivation, passion, and truly enjoying her work were the most important things that kept her going. She thanks God for the ability to have a chance to do what she desires. While she may love her job, there are times of stress that come along. Her demanding work requires her to stay attentive and put all of her efforts into every single patient she sees. She's accustomed to her work by now and knows that her job is what she truly wanted to do, allowing her to be mentally prepared for her future hardships. She's trained herself into restraining from complaining or feeling overwhelmed. Instead, Dr. Linga understands what she has signed up for and enjoys challenges that come along her way. She's certain that her line of work was meant for her. However, Dr. Linga has thought about switching from pediatrics to neonatology, which remains in her field.
Dr. Linga works long shifts, starting from a minimum of 8 hours and sometimes up to 14 hours long without being able to go home or rest. Her job comes with a highly inflexible schedule that sometimes requires her to come in at odd hours in order to oversee a high-risk delivery or see pediatric patients in the ER. Despite the difficulty of her career and the hours she works with her own family at home, she loves her job. It has allowed her to meet many people of many different backgrounds in India and in the US. She says her career has taught her that whatever differences you have, it doesn't matter as long as you're practicing your medicine, you know what you're doing, and that's what's more important, and you can be as successful as long as you know your job. Everything else you can learn along the way. Although looking back at her life, she wishes she would have made better use of the opportunities afforded to her and been more enthusiastic and hardworking, she is an important part of our community. Throughout her life, Dr. Linga has helped thousands of patients and families in both treating illnesses as well as preventing them. Especially at a time like this, when healthcare professionals are under the most stress they have ever been under and are needed the most, it is important to appreciate Dr. Linga for her hard work and for putting herself in danger so everyone else does not have to. We want to say thank you to Dr. Linga and every other healthcare professional that works to protect us alongside her every day.
Marianne's story begins at the end of high school. She, like many of us, was unsure as to what she should do with her life. She asked for some advice and was told that she should simply get a business degree, as there's always some job that you could get in business. This was despite the fact that she had an interest in psychology. She asked her college if she could transfer into psychology, and they told her that she should just go into human resources, as that had to do with people. Being young and inexperienced, Marianne accepted. Eventually, Marianne was able to realize her dream of helping people by finding her faith as a Presbyterian and started running the Wellness Center. Now, Marianne's goal is for the Wellness Center to be looked at as a viable program in which people could turn to when they are in need of for anything, from mental help to dance lessons. Now, here are some lessons that we've learned from Marianne. The first lesson is that you have to be willing to put in the work. She demonstrates this by being a part of the whole process of actually running the Wellness Center, from leading to teaching to even just moving tables and chairs for events taking place in the center. The second lesson that Marianne taught us was that education and learning never stops. She practices this mantra when she got a postgraduate degree in life coaching. Since she specialized in guiding people and helping them improve their lives, she feels that it is necessary with those she helps. The third and final lesson we learned from Marianne is that you never know what is going to happen, but you have to know when to take a chance. This has shown how Marianne never planned to be the director of a wellness center, but this opportunity to help people came, and she took a chance to follow one of her dreams, and she achieved it.
There are about 46,000 people living in South Brunswick Township. My name is Andrea Herrera, and I am one of them, but I want to shine the spotlight on someone more known in our community. Her name is Angelica Bacos, and while she may be the new youth minister at St. Cecilia Catholic Church, she wants to be of service to us all. The faces of our neighborhood, no two are alike. One of them is Angelica Bacos, who I am sure you will all like. Youth minister of St. Cecilia Church, who works with the Metuchen Diocese. Her administrative work is done with integrity, but most importantly, she welcomes the community. There is never a typical day. Some have program planning, others lesson planning. All require her flexibility. Born and raised in SB, Angelica has learned to work with everyone. Her smile greets, her communication congregates. She uses word of mouth to get her events and meetings out there, and never overlooks a good old-fashioned personal invitation. She doesn't want to be a billionaire. Angelica rather be a saint. She works out of passion from the heart to help others in their faith. I have had the pleasure of working with Angelica by going to retreats and youth group meetings. In her first year there, she has helped little kids trick-or-treat at the church, hosted a Friendsgiving feast, and held a Christmas party. We had our first 8th grade confirmation retreat this year and the annual Cry retreat. With her, we were able to have more participants on both retreats than we had team members.
She made binders for all 12 of the team members with our names and a schedule, and even gifted us personalized mugs to thank us for our work. It is no easy task to start a youth ministry where there is none, and then on top of that, get people to follow you. How does she do it? She is always happily awaiting people's arrival in the church, especially on Monday nights at 8 p.m. when we have live meetings. Living in Faith for Teens is a place where students from South Brunswick High School and even other schools come together to eat snacks from the mobile snack bucket and enjoy time with their community. Angelica keeps us well fed while also providing an environment free of stress and full of comfort. The most surprising part is that Angelica did not imagine herself doing any of this. As fun as it may be working with teens like myself, she describes her position in our town as a calling. After all, she is the one who taught me God does not call the prepared, He prepares the called. It is not easy to be the middleman who connects young teens and other parishioners with a higher being, to try to please everyone while also following the rules of the church and taking care of her responsibilities. Angelica hurdles another obstacle known as self-doubt, the little voice we all have inside our heads that tells us we can't do it. Angelica has had to defeat her own fears every day while gaining the trust of others and pleasing them to prove she's the right person to lead at St. Cecilia. Integrating herself into a larger role in our neighborhood has come with its challenges, but she has also enjoyed blooming like a flower throughout the process. Being in a position of a lot of giving has taught her we need to pour into ourselves, water our own petals so that we can give to others. It is apparent in her work that she uses her thoughts and prayer to properly discern how she can be her best for those around her. She keeps in mind that the teens she works with have valid problems. Many teens are overlooked for being dramatic, but she knows feeling important helped her when she needed it. Because of this, she takes adolescents seriously and gives them the love they deserve. Angelica Bacos, chapter 4, verse 7. Something good always happens when it rains. Angelica shares these words with the people she comes across because they are her truth. They happen to be my truth too, and may even be yours. There is another strong female in our community. Her name is Mary Alice Goldsmith. She led the Cry Retreat for years, but it was time for her to move on to another phase of her life. Teen members of the team like myself are left in the dark, not knowing who would fill her spot or what Cry would look like in the future. But even though it rained, something good happened, and it was Angelica. This young woman has an infinite checklist of tasks to focus on, and yet she finds the time to do more than what's required of a youth minister. She is an idol worth admiring, as she demonstrated when she let me sit next to her in a church pew and follow along when I didn't know how. She is thoughtful by ordering personal pizzas for my friend Anna, who is allergic to gluten, and willing to fulfill your ice cream cravings by bringing tubs of it to youth group. And she is a great hugger who will embrace you when it feels like all you can do is cry. If there is one thing you can take away about Angelica Bacos, it's that, like the church, she keeps her arms wide open to let the world know all are welcome. She unites our community so we can work and coexist better as a whole, and for that, she should be recognized.
I was born into two families. One was the traditional one everyone thinks of when the word family is used, the one that grew after my parents' marriage, the family that I would be the last of 4 children in. However, there was a much larger family I would not come to realize I was a part of until a little while later. This family was bound by an oath to serve and protect, not by blood, but no less strong. My father has been a part of the South Brunswick Police Department for as long as I have been alive, a member of a family that only grew as new officers joined. Like any family, these people came together in good times and in bad. I grew up attending the meets with Santa that cops and their kids attended, celebrating achievements, spending time in the kitchen preparing meals during Hurricane Sandy, and acting as a suspect for the Citizens Police Academy with the same people. I'd hear their voices on the car radio during a car ride or in my house. I'd wave to them in the hallways when they began working in the schools, and once, and only once, I would be pulled over by one of them. So when a common household name for me, a person in that second family of mine, appeared on my class's Living Legacies list of people to be interviewed, I wanted to ensure that Chief Heyduka was done justice. Chief Heyduka found his passion in policing through discovery. After taking several college classes and witnessing family friends in similar fields, Chief Raymond Heyduka would come to decide on his career. His career would land him in the not-so-small town of South Brunswick, beginning in 1989. Over the next 16 years, Raymond Heyduka would prove that he deserved every promotion through merit and testing. He would achieve a rank that the vast majority of officers never get to reach in their lifetime: Chief of Police. But things did not just suddenly get easier when he climbed the ladder. It was no time to relax. Being a leader meant that he had to make those controversial decisions, the ones no one else would want to make, like disciplining. Thrown into the fire, he quickly learned that taking things personal was not and could not be in the job description. He would serve and protect, guiding others along the way. He valued education and knew that this was the key to making this department the strongest it could be. He invested time into training, whether that be sending officers to command and leadership conferences and seminars, to train at the FBI Academy, or to receive higher education at a college or university. He pushes people to be stronger, smarter, and better than they were or knew they could be. I want to begin the end of this speech by explaining that this cannot possibly sum up the living legacy that is Chief Heyduka. He has aspired for levels never reached before for both himself and the department. One of the greatest achievements and examples of this is getting the department accredited. Being an accredited police department took time and effort to achieve that level. It is considered to be the gold standard in public safety and is a hard achievement to reach. He set a goal for himself and for the department and pushed until they got there. He doesn't accept anything less than the best from himself, his peers, and the department as a whole, an expectation that will stay with the police department long after he is gone.
We interviewed the owner of the local business T Squared, Tom Taggart. His business is to produce and provide high-quality signs, clothing, vehicle graphics, and more. His business is best known for providing varsity jackets for schools all across New Jersey, including the South Brunswick High School. He works at schools, sports teams, events, townships, and more to help expose his business to more and more people. We interviewed him on his opinions about South Brunswick, and here's what he said. Mr. Taggart had originally lived in Brooklyn. He had a job, but lost it because of the tragic events that occurred on 9/11. This had motivated him to start a business. He originally committed to South Brunswick and eventually just moved to the township. He explained that he really enjoys the township of South Brunswick as a whole. He does not have many problems with it because he now lives in South Brunswick. He enjoys that his store is very close to his home and appreciates the sincerity of most of the people in South Brunswick. He loves that he is familiar with the town now. However, one fault of the township that he expressed, which is more a fault of the state, is the harsh taxes that are imposed onto him.
After 9/11, he had started his company, T Squared, which was named after his own initials, TT. While starting up the business, it was difficult for him to get exposure for his brand. Marketing and advertising was a real struggle for him in the beginning, but he managed to get himself out there. Just last year, he had the best numbers and profited more than he ever has. Mr. Taggart has been running the business for 18 years now and continues to work hard with passion. He loves what he does and wishes he had started at a younger age. Mr. Taggart hopes to grow the business even more. Mr. Taggart has 4 children and wants his business to be passed down to his partner and children. Unfortunately, due to the coronavirus, Mr. Taggart's business has been affected drastically. Although he has lost 50% of his earnings, he is optimistic and continues to work hard. His online store with SBHS merchandise has been able to keep him afloat to a certain extent. He also found true inspiration from self-starters and people who took initiative upon themselves. It was his work ethic and determination that got him to where he is. Mr. Taggart was not handed down this business and is proud of his almost 20-year journey to where he is today. His impact is quite strong in the community and is pretty well known, most notably for the varsity jackets and clothing our school gets. The thing he enjoys most is seeing high schoolers get their jacket and gleam with joy, and finds it quite funny.
Some advice he offered is that if anyone wanted to open a business like his, they most importantly would need to learn the craft. With that, you have to learn about business in general, accounting, and taxes. He advises that putting 100% into the work you do and putting the extra work to learn everything about the field will bring success. Cutting corners and not reading and using all the sources will only hurt you. With that said, he wished he followed his passion and started earlier, which is why he advises one who wants to start a business like his to do the same. Mr. Taggart enjoys everything that has come his way because he sees it as a learning experience. The new people he meets, through the highs and lows, all these experiences enabled him to get where he is today. He values learning from experience and wants kids to always be optimistic. Mr. Taggart's journey is a perfect example of where passion can take you and wants us to do nothing more than to achieve our passion.
My name is Mark. Most people do not know me, but I am the current manager of Vinny's Pizza. This, however, is not where I thought my life would end up. Even though my family has always been in the food industry, I had other interests. For a while in my youth, I thought that my destiny was to be a lawyer or writer, and after a while it switched to music. However, no matter what my interests were during my childhood, I was still connected to the family business. My first job was in a pizzeria when I was 13 years old. It was only a matter of time until all the pieces fell into place, and I finally ended up where I belong. Years later, I realized what I wanted to do and bought the franchise, becoming the manager of the store. One of the most important things I've learned from having this job is managing my time. Although it is important to stay focused on the task at hand, at the same time I'm always looking for ways to build for the future, which is why I urge you young folks to understand this. Learn everything you can. The experience is right there in front of you. You just have to reach out and grab it. In American society, we have a tendency to be content with the bare minimum, like just doing the work to pass a class when you know you could do so much more. Sometimes it is anxiety that makes people not fulfill their dreams, but it can never hurt to try. Thank you.
Everyone has a dream of what they want to be when they grow up. We may not always fulfill our goals, but we often grow to love what we choose to do for the rest of our lives, even if it is not our original career path. There are many prominent figures, or living legacies, that contribute to our town daily. One of them being Mrs. Nancy Messina, the coordinator of the Special Needs Program and director within the Recreational Department of our South Brunswick Township building. The South Brunswick Recreation Department is considerably under the influence of Mrs. Messina and the good she has done for the community. From coordinating the Special Needs Youth and Adult Program, which is called the Pioneer Club, organizing township events, and creating many volunteering opportunities, Mrs. Messina continues to contribute to making South Brunswick a more welcoming and advanced township. On a day-to-day basis, Mrs. Messina deals with the public frequently. For example, she is either always on important phone calls or having meetings in her office. This season, her meetings consist of taking applications for picnics, field rentals, and planning clubs and activities for the Pioneer Club.
Working in the recreational department can be hectic, but Mrs. Messina enjoys each day and takes pride in her work. In the township, Mrs. Messina kickstarted the successful Pioneer Club. Not only is the Pioneer Club something she is very passionate about, but she also wanted to develop an opportunity for young adults to volunteer with special needs kids. Mrs. Messina emphasized it to us that with a little help of caring volunteers, the special needs kids and adults can have a life filled with fun and the feeling of being included. She has not been able to carry out this opportunity yet, but she hopes to go beyond her job description and plan something for the future. Mrs. Messina never envisioned herself to be where she is now, but she has always wanted to work with special needs. Whether it be with children or adults, she has always had a soft spot for those in need. She always wanted to be a special needs teacher since working with kids brings her the utmost joy. She enjoys her position as of right now since she still gets her fair share of it within her department. Her preschool program incorporates special needs into her life, and she is grateful for that. Her passion for her line of work sparked when she was young, and no one outright influenced this passion. Before her position here in South Brunswick, she was in marketing and she worked as a buyer for a pharmaceutical company. The jump from that job to this one changed her attitude about her career, since she found herself doing something she truly loves. She does acknowledge her mother for being a supportive figure in her career by advising that she be kind to others and help other people out of the goodness in her heart. Being a mother herself is a considerable role itself, and after having her 3 kids, her life changed as well. Working full-time as a director and as a mother of 3 can be stressful and overwhelming, but she's optimistic when she steps into her office. She did not take this with a grain of salt, and she used this advice to guide her when helping special needs kids to have more of a chance to be involved in activities.
While Mrs. Messina never truly needed a degree, she found that having experience in the field beforehand was essential to landing the job full-time. Mrs. Messina worked with the recreational department for 12 years part-time before becoming a full-time director in the program. While she loves the work now, the transition may not have been as crystal clear. Before landing the job, Mrs. Messina had to take care of her 3 children and had a lot more time to be a mother. She found that this time didn't necessarily translate with the amount of work she had when she first became a full-time director in the township. She was used to having enough time for personal duties as well as work. However, with a new job, Mrs. Messina found that the need to refuse some opportunities during her free time to finish her work in her field was necessary. Mrs. Messina is a dedicated, determined individual who fights to get what she wants and makes do with the time she has to get her work done and finish the job under every circumstance and make South Brunswick a better place. No matter what career path you choose, what is most important is that you absolutely love what you do every day. Without a doubt, the line of work was not what Mrs. Messina imagined herself working in, but looking back, she would not want her profession to have played out any other way. And that's just how you want it in life. Mrs. Messina has inspired people of all ages, including me and my partners here, to respect and include people of the community, especially those who have special needs. She has taught us to care for the people around us and spread nothing but only positivity. Mrs. Messina herself has said, "I love my job. I love the people that I work with, the people that I help, and my volunteer staff. There hasn't been one kid that I don't like. I absolutely love helping and giving back to South Brunswick Township. And in the future, I want to make sure that I give back to South Brunswick Township as well." Certainly, Mrs. Messina will pursue to advance in the community and make it a place where we feel safe and content, which we cannot thank her enough for. Nancy Messina is truly a legacy of South Brunswick, is truly leaving a legacy in South Brunswick Township that we will never forget.
The United States is often referred to as the melting pot of the world, and that cannot be more evident than right here in South Brunswick. Within these roughly 40 square miles reside people from all walks of life, each with their own unique story. Hi, my name is Sahil, and today I'd like to briefly share with you Joyce Mehta's story. Many of you may know Mrs. Mehta as an active community advocate and as an elected member of the South Brunswick Board of Education. I have had the pleasure of getting to know Mrs. Mehta in my time as the student representative to the Board of Education. In getting to know her for over a year, I have seen firsthand how dedicated and passionate Mrs. Mehta is when it comes to serving her community. Mrs. Mehta is the perfect example of a true American success story. She originally grew up in a Gujarati household in the United Kingdom. Growing up, Mrs. Mehta has always been interested in politics. However, she never considered running for public office until she moved to the United States. With a lot of hard work, Mrs. Mehta turned her passion for politics and advocacy into a career, becoming a lawyer in the UK. When Mrs. Mehta moved to the United States, she used her knowledge of the law and her passion for community activism to run for the local school board. She saw a need in her community for a transparent leader whose only true loyalty was to the people. She wanted to improve our schools not only for her own children, but for our entire South Brunswick family. When asked what her biggest motivation to run for the school board was, she told me that she wanted to improve the mental health and stress levels of our students. For anyone mildly familiar with this school district, it is common knowledge that the competitive nature of SBHS can be mentally draining and even unhealthy for students who have so much on their plate. Mrs. Mehta's goal as a school board member is to ease some of that stress for our students. Mrs. Mehta's transition from community activist to elected official was far from easy, mainly because as an elected official, there are so many more rules and regulations holding her back from doing what she wants or feels is necessary. Despite these challenges, Mrs. Mehta is inspired to continue the fight to improve our schools every time she sees our students making the incredible, groundbreaking achievements that have come to define the excellence of South Brunswick schools. As an elected official, Mrs. Mehta has found a new appreciation for public service, as she now knows how it feels from both sides. As a community activist, she was used to simply planning and executing a project, often with immediate results. When asked if there was one thing she wanted the community to know about the Board of Education, she said that even though it often seems as if nothing is being done and change takes forever, the board truly does care and is trying, but it is difficult to get past so much of the red tape that local government is restrained by. But Mrs. Mehta doesn't let the red tape hold her back in her effort to improve our schools. A typical day in her life before this pandemic would include writing and reviewing policies for the curriculum and policy committees, attending meetings, and visiting schools whenever she can. She loves to interact with students and parents. Mrs. Mehta sees her role as less of a policymaker and more of a community liaison to the board. Mrs. Mehta never wants to lose focus of her true goal, which is to serve as an advocate for the students and parents she was elected to serve. When asked about what keeps her going through all of the stress and frustration that comes with local office, Mrs. Mehta told me that it's a lot of coffee. But in all seriousness, it's the satisfaction of seeing happy community members after the completion of a successful project.
Mr. Soffit is currently a local Boy Scout Scoutmaster for Troop 114 in South Brunswick, but he has been a big part of community volunteering since he was a young boy. Ever since Mr. Soffit was a high school student at Teaneck High School in northern New Jersey, he has had a strong bond with organizing youth activities. In 9th grade, he started organizing intramural sports competitions between youth groups after Sunday school. Most of the time, these were street hockey tournaments with other communities that took place every weekend. This brought children together in ways that schoolwork could not, and it made Mr. Soffit feel even more connected to his community. He always enjoyed seeing the children just being able to relax and have fun with each other while playing sports. Then in 10th and 11th grade, Mr. Soffit worked with other youth leaders from surrounding communities to expand these tournaments and make them more organized. And that's how he became involved in creating a youth Olympics that had over 300 competitors from 20 different schools. They competed in many events including basketball, soccer, football, volleyball, and even track and field. They were responsible for organizing referees and finding a school where they could compete and renting that school for a weekend. Even Mr. Soffit was a referee sometimes. So they had tournaments spread across the area in schools from Newark, Patterson, Queens, and Trenton. He wanted to connect as many people as possible, and getting kids from many cities was a great way of strengthening these bonds. This was a huge success, and just one of the many ways Mr. Soffit has helped youth activities.
At the same time, during the summers, he helped organize youth summer camps right outside of Philadelphia in what was called 76ers Summer Camp because of the Philadelphia 76ers basketball team. People from across the East Coast came to the camp, from Virginia, Maryland, Washington, D.C., Pennsylvania, and New York. Youth activities had always been a big part of his life as a child, and he continued to be involved with them as he grew older. When Mr. Soffit was in high school, he was also involved in school sports, specifically wrestling. He also enjoyed being in the outdoors very much, and his family often went on fishing and camping trips. Although he enjoyed these trips, he also realized that it was not the same as when young boys are out camping without their parents and having their own responsibilities. So he decided to get involved in Boy Scouts for his sons, to have that experience. Mr. Soffit loves being out in nature and is a leader of many environmental protection groups. On camping trips, he always stresses how important it is to make sure that you leave without doing any harm to nature. He brings awareness to significant issues like climate change and really cares about the importance of taking care of our shared home.
Currently, Mr. Soffit spends a lot of his time volunteering in the Boy Scouts of America program. He created Troop 114 in 2001, which was the first Muslim troop in New Jersey at the time. He has been the head scoutmaster of Troop 114 for the past 19 years, and he is actively involved in their weekly meetings. He also helped organize the first 2 Muslim International Boy Scout Jamborees in the United States. He camps with the Scouts on a regular basis, and his advice to young kids makes a lasting difference in their lives. Although Mr. Soffit is growing older, he is still showing signs of energy that he had as a young kid during the Boy Scout meetings and during the camps. It is safe to say that he will continue to camp for years to come. His commitment to helping young boys become young men in the Boy Scouts program also shows how much he cares about the upbringing of the next generation. All of the Scouts he has taught in the past and all of those he teaches now are a part of his legacy to the community. And that is why Mr. Soffit is a living legacy to South Brunswick.
What can possibly motivate a person to leave everything they've ever known, their family, their friends, their home, to travel to an unknown country and start a new life? When Dr. Ahmad Muhammad left Kuwait, his only goal was to achieve an education beyond that which was offered in his homeland. Good morning, our names are Hamza and Jordan. Today we'll be talking about Dr. Ahmad Muhammad, his background, his career, and why we believe he is a living legacy. Dr. Ahmad entered his professional life at the age of 18, when he started to take up odd jobs and academic positions in order to pursue higher education in Canada. Having left the majority of his family, including his parents, back home in Kuwait, he was faced not only with financial pressures, but also the psychological stress of being away from everyone he knew and loved. Regardless, he continued to pursue his passion for biology through a bachelor's degree, during which time he also learned how to balance the necessities of living independently and also furthering his education and capacity to work professionally. As he continued in his college education, Dr. Ahmed began taking more serious positions in academia, serving as a teacher's assistant, working in laboratories for research, and collectively authoring scientific papers, for a few examples. While he didn't intend at the time to pursue a future in teaching, he now recognizes in hindsight that it was those experiences in that period of his life that contributed to his success as a teacher today. Now, in the modern day, Dr. Ahmed uses the skills he learned earlier in his life to contribute to the community around him. He now works as a resident scholar of ISCJ, the Islamic Society of Central Jersey. In the past couple of years, he has developed multiple curricula for various classes, both for children and adults. He's also given multiple lectures, both locally and across the country. And finally, he has developed a mentorship program where he individually trains some of the older youth in the community to spearhead their own programs and gain leadership in their own positions. Even though he has only been a part of the ICJ community for a few years, the degree of interaction between people within that community and the desire they have to participate in such programs is indicative of his success.
Since Dr. Med started his life anew after leaving Kuwait, he has strived to pursue an education that he now uses to benefit the community around him. In his college years, he learned independence, the academic skills necessary for his job, and explored hobbies that would later enable him to better understand and counsel the youth he deals with daily. Considering these factors, Dr. Ahmed stands as a living legacy in our South Brunswick community. Dr. Ahmed Mohammed left his homeland in search of a higher education here in America. He left behind his life in Kuwait, traveled to an unknown country in order to educate himself more. In doing so, he has become a legacy in the South Brunswick community. From teaching kids to helping other immigrants, Dr. Ahmed has truly made an impact on our society.
Managing Patel's cash and carry for the last 14 years, Mr. Amin has been one of the more prominent figures in the South Brunswick community. Patel's cash and carry has become a hotspot for groceries in South Brunswick, with thousands of people visiting the store every month. From working as a small store manager to managing a large location, Mr. Amin has faced several challenges and has gained an immense amount of experience. Throughout Mr. Amin's time in South Brunswick, he has learned various things about the South Brunswick community, as well as the skills and dedication required to do the draft. With 12 hours of executive decision-making a day, there is a lot of experience held by Mr. Amin. He has to make calls on daily deliveries, supplier productivity, and even inventory choices. This complex job requires a lot of focus and drive. On top of this, supplier payments and checks are constantly needed to keep a constant flow of business and productivity. Growing up in India helped him become more specialized in his field of work because he was forced to work hard on the family farm and on small jobs around the town. So he produced a deeper sense of dedication to work. Initially, the job was far more difficult.
It's very evident that Mr. Amin, among many others, has put in a lot of time and dedication into creating a business that has helped improve the South Brunswick community. Considering the long hours he works and the immense amount of patience needed for his job, Mr. Amin has done an amazing job in keeping with his business for so long. It's not easy to take such a huge step in your career after growing up in a completely different environment than the one that we have here in South Brunswick, but Mr. Amin was willing to take on such challenges. He not only used all his experiences growing up in India, but was willing to learn all the new skills required for this job on his journey to success. His grocery store not only brings more culture to our community, but gives a sense of unity for the South Asian population present here. With such a business, many feel comfort and familiarity as they have grown up in a similar environment to Mr. Amin and can relate to his experiences and struggles. He's a friendly face of his business and tries his best to engage in his community as much as possible, making his place of work warm and welcoming. His business has been thriving and will continue to do so with the amount of effort he has put into it. He has created much diversity for our community, most definitely a legacy that he strives to expand onto many more places around our country. We appreciate his work ethic and perseverance as he inspires more and more people to help the South Brunswick community grow and flourish.
He had to drive to the Bronx 4 times a week at 4 a.m. to pick up fresh produce. It took a while to develop into the successful business it is today. Over time, he learned to be more understanding and reliant with workers. This can only go to a certain extent, as the flexible hours and days off offered can sometimes be taken advantage of. He also learned that he needed to hone in on his communication skills, as that helped pave the way for even more business. These are a few of the many strategic plans he has picked up during his line of work. Mr. Amin learned to take advantage of his primary customer base at an early stage. This is why he created another location in West Windsor, as there was a large customer base present there that purchased his products. He is able to act in a similar fashion with that location by managing suppliers, inventory issues, and numerous payments as well. Switching careers is not something that Mr. Amin would consider, as he is so connected to his line of work now. He feels that it would be too difficult to shift the magnitude of his position, so it is easier to hold the position. Training a new, inexperienced manager can be very difficult, and it would take too long to execute.
Prem Lada Chada, a loving wife and a mother of 2, a committed salon owner at Aricha Beauty Salon, and a living legacy here in South Brunswick, New Jersey. She wakes up at the same time every day at 6 a.m. to get ready, clean the house, and by 9:30 she's on her way to the salon. She starts by prepping everything inside, and by 10 a.m. the shop is open. She's working till closing at 7, then cleans up the place and gets home by 8 p.m. She comes home to her loving daughter Aricha, who she named the salon after, and her son Jay. Before coming to America, Mrs. Chadha lived in India. She was a nurse, but also on the side worked at a salon part-time. In India, cosmetology is a big statement. With the fashion and makeup, it is all part of their culture. She decided to bring this to America in a small town called South Brunswick. When she first arrived here in America, she continued being a nurse and worked in cosmetology. However, after having 2 kids, she decided to stick full-time with the salon and could handle her 2 children growing up. Her mother was a major influence on her in picking this career. She learned almost all of her skills from her mother. When she first started in this line of career, she was taking appointments at home, being her own manager. She handled everything, scheduling, buying supplies, and doing people's hair and makeup. She spent 19 years working from home and advises others who want to go into cosmetology to do the same. Mrs. Chadha was discussing this and said, "I got a lot of experience and a lot of connections to help me get to the point I am now." It is a smart and efficient way to start a salon without having to handle the workload of a new shop. This allows someone to get experience and, like Mrs. Chadha, opened their own salon so no one has to get their hair cut in her kitchen anymore. She opened the Aricha salon in 2016 and has been very successful cutting, dyeing, and waxing hair. She says the workload is tough. Owning your own business doesn't really give you flexible hours, but she made it work. Having Jane and Aricha help at the salon, working the front desk, or simply hanging around while she worked, it became like another home for this family. Grandparents would come and all the other family members or close friends. In the beginning, though, owning the salon wasn't easy. She had way more expenses to deal with and more demand. She came up with her own business plan and now is successfully owning the shop for 4 years, with many more to come. She thinks about opening more salons, but it's hard to find employees to work on a low wage, since buying another shop won't be cheap or short hours. For now, she is learning new techniques since beauty is always expanding and also trying to promote her salon. Being a cosmetologist means long hours straining your body. However, Mrs. Chadha says it's all worth knowing she has made someone happier.
Board and Brush, since its opening, has been a bright spot in the South Brunswick community. It's been a place where people come together to spend time with friends while painting and having a good time. It's a time to let go of the stress that we all invariably feel in our daily lives, and a chance to express yourself and let it all go through a productive, creative outlet. With artistic charm and a warm, family-friendly environment, it is welcoming to all of the local people. Not only is it a great evening guaranteed, but you also walk away with a masterpiece of your own to take home. No previous competency in art required.
The owner, Glory, and her husband greeted us with warm smiles and were excited to talk to us about the business they had built. Glory has also worked a full-time job at an agency called Alternatives that serves people with mental illnesses, developmental disabilities, and people experiencing homelessness. At the end of her workday, she comes to run Board and Brush. For the couple, Board and Brush is more of a passion project, birthed from their passion for arts and crafts. Neither of them had art experience, but truly believed in the concept and knew it could be a great space for the community.
Some advice that she would give to people who want to start a business like hers or follow her path would be to understand business and to have a passion for what they are pursuing. Their biggest accomplishment is helping their community. They love giving young people employment experiences, especially to people who may not have had the opportunity to work otherwise and gain experience. They have a true appreciation for the South Brunswick community because the people of their neighborhood were always there in their time of need. Their daughter, who suffered from a genetic illness that left her wheelchair-bound and tragically passed away at the age of 8. Through it all, the South Brunswick community has always had their back, and they are very grateful. Creating this space, this business, is a way they feel like they are giving back.
In their line of work, Glory has developed patience, temper control, skill in vocalizing opinions, and experience considering other people's opinions. Because they are helping people who are new to art, Patience is integral in providing good customer experiences. It also creates an environment that is safe and fun to work in.
There has never been a dull moment in Board and Brush. People with different backgrounds and stories continuously attend the workshops. The atmosphere, employees, and customers make it a bright spot in the South Brunswick community. However, it is Glory and her husband that should be recognized the most. Gloria's experience in the business, such as working at an agency called Alternatives, not only taught her how to run one, but also how to work with all different types of customers. One of her beliefs as a businesswoman is to have passion for your endeavors you may pursue, or it might not turn out as well. One thing she's learned in her journey at Board and Brush is to be patient and understanding with her clients. Despite the issues we face today in the world, Board and Brush still stands to give hope and happiness to the South Brunswick community.
The beauty of a person's career path shines through their passion and determination. Where can passion lead a person, and how difficult would their journey to greatness be? I have interviewed Dr. Corey Como, a psychotherapist who works in his own private business and a mental hospital in Franklin Township, with a few other notable achievements. In his earlier years, during high school, he competed in judo in the United States Junior Olympics, the United States Junior Nationals, and multiple times in the New Jersey State Judo Championships. As part of his high school, he also played baseball and wrestled each of his 4 years. Socially, he found his groove. While he played sports, he was not a real jock. His friends were mostly the art crowd, the musicians, the 1980s version of heavy metal, and goth kids. He had a long-term girlfriend from his junior year of high school until his junior year of college. His high school was a good time. After high school, he enrolled in college and found it to be one of the best experiences of his life. He was a resident assistant for 3 years, had a radio show, was on the Peer Judicial Hearing Committee, started Stockton College's judo and wrestling clubs, founded a chapter of a fraternity, spent every weekend going to concerts at clubs in Trenton, Philadelphia, Asbury Park, New Brunswick, and NYC. He also went to class nearly every day and graduated with a 4.0 in his major and with a 3.5 overall. Graduation left Corey unsure of himself as he was struggling to find meaningful work. During 1992, the economy was in poor shape. However, he also struggled with many recent graduates struggling with desertion. His expectations of his career were not congruent with the reality of being a recent college graduate. Added to that, his social network was gone and all of his friends scattered after college graduation. 2 years after graduation from college, he founded the Princeton Judo Club. Dr. Como's career as a competitor had come to an end as life had taken him in a different direction, as he no longer had the time to dedicate to training. The Judo Club has become a major part of his identity as it provided him with the social connections that many people lose as they age, have families, and become focused on their careers. For 3 years after he completed college, Dr. Como worked several jobs in multiple fields until he decided to enroll in graduate school. Once in graduate school, he found his groove again. As he matured, he felt better about himself, had a more clearly defined goal, and eventually found a full-time job working at the University of Medicine and Dentistry in New Jersey in their behavioral health division. He worked full-time and attended graduate school full-time. It was a challenge. Every time he would start to feel overwhelmed, he would think back to the feeling of being lost between college and graduate school. This would help him refocus and move forward. During his time in graduate school, he met the woman who would become his wife in 3 short years. 1999 was a big year as he was married, graduated from Rutgers University Graduate School of Social Work, and he moved his judo club into a larger space as enrollment boomed. By 2005, he and his wife purchased their home, welcomed their son into the world, had opened 2 private psychotherapy practice offices, and had continued to climb the professional ladder UMDNJ that would later be absorbed by Rutgers University. During 2008, his daughter was born and rounded out their happy family. The years since his daughter was born were the best years of his life, filled with drama, dad talk, and even energized pizza sleepovers. The journey had its challenges, but those ups and downs have been the best part. The destinations have been great. The life between the destinations is what has made everything so special. As a result, Dr. Como lives a happy life, still working at a mental hospital and managing all other sides of his business for the last 15 years. Thank you, Dr. Como.
Did you know that the current chief of the South Brunswick Rescue Squad reintroduced the student EMT program to South Brunswick? His name is Richard Hoff, and he has been working with the South Brunswick Rescue Squad for the past 7 years. Let us now get to know the man behind the uniform. Richard Hoff was born in a small town in Oklahoma and is one of 5 children. By the time he was in 8th grade, he had already moved to 7 different schools and had lived in 6 different states. He went to college and decided to major in criminal justice. Before becoming an EMT, he was a security officer at Six Flags. There, he decided that he wanted to join a rescue squad and train to become an EMT. He's the father of 2 sons and now works at an insurance salesman job apart from his job as the chief of the rescue squad. He has been an EMT for 33 years and has worked in a handful of towns as an EMT. When asked what he loves about his job, he ecstatically said that he loves being able to serve the community of South Brunswick and create connections with the people that live in the town. Some of the best times he has had at the job were when he delivered babies, and his favorite experience was when he was able to save a man's life using CPR and see that same man walk into a rescue squad open house. His profession is always evolving and changing, meaning he must be adaptive and move his team along to allow them to handle current issues in the community. He has an enormous responsibility as he is in charge of organizing the rescue squad and keeping the program moving swiftly. However challenging his job may be, Richard enjoys his occupation considerably and finds it extremely rewarding. Apart from being an EMT and an insurance salesman, he enjoys spending time with his sons, working out, and kickboxing at CKO. As the chief of the squad, he wants the community of South Brunswick to know that the squad is there for them whenever an emergency requires attention, and that their team purely consists of volunteers who take time out of their day to help their community. Richard Hoff humbly believes that his job serves a great purpose to the community, and the community shares in his belief. Thank you, Richard, for making an impact and leaving your legacy on the South Brunswick community.